before any hints are up of what the talk will be about. So just come into peace and connect with God, because really you want to be listening, hearing what He's saying. So yeah, He might show you a picture, He might give you an impression, might get a sense. Just ask Him just now. So, one of the things I felt when I was just sitting over there during worship, I just felt there's someone here who feels like you're in a cage, and there's kind of like these bars of addictive behaviours around you that you can't break. So just in Jesus' name, I just command those bars break right now, and the cage disappear. Where God is, there's breakthrough. So just any addictions are broken in Jesus' name. So if I could slide one up, please, Tony. So we've been going through a series on different characters from the New Testament the last few weeks called God Still Wants Me. And today I'll be speaking about Joshua and the power of our voice for good or evil when we speak out what we really believe. And that picture there, you can't see it all that well, but it's a girl looking into the water and the lion's looking back. And there's a meme that went through the internet a wee while ago which said, she remembered who she was and everything changed. And I just want to just put that thought in your mind. When we know who we are, everything changes. And so, Joshua, I love the Old Testament histories because they're both historically true, but God somehow also woven them into really profound parables that inspire us. And Paul calls these parables types in the New Testament. Can I have the next slide, please? And really, what I feel we're to take out of this type, I'm giving away the end at the beginning, is the power of our voice. There's in James chapter 3 verses 4 and 5, it says, a small rudder on a huge ship in the hands of a skilled captain sets a course in the face of the strongest winds. A word out of your mouth may seem of no account, but it can accomplish nearly anything or destroy it. And in 2 Corinthians 4:13, Paul quotes a psalm and he says, I believed and therefore I spoke. And with Joshua, you really see the power of believing and then speaking. So, Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses came just before Joshua. That story can be read as a parable of our own journey when we get saved. Egypt, leaving Egypt is leaving behind our slavery to sin, things that hold us back, getting baptized, moving to our land of promise. And Joshua, on the other hand, represents us moving into our inheritance, our promised land, what it takes to achieve that. One of my favourite verses is Daniel 11:32. The people who know their God shall be strong and do great exploits. And I think for us in our lives, achieving our potential, we do that as we learn how to become strong and carry out great exploits. And so the life of Joshua gives us wisdom in the power of how we choose to look at things. So, to tell the story properly, that was just a quick introduction. Can I have slide 3, please? Let's start with the context. The Israelites have just spent centuries as slaves in Egypt. Then God raised up Moses in fulfillment of prophecy to do two things. First of all, to take Israel out of Egypt, and secondly, to take them into the land God had promised them about 400 years before. Moses persuades the Egyptian Pharaoh to let the Israelites go by doing amazing miracles. And they leave, but then Pharaoh changes his mind and sends his army to take them back into slavery. God rescues the Israelites by parting the Red Sea so they can walk right through it, and then closing it on the Egyptian army, killing them all. Within 2 years they come to their promised land where the story begins. And the people's decisions mark the difference between entering into the blessed destiny God had planned or staying in the wilderness for the rest of their lives. And if you look at that story, it's also an amazing parable of each of us. Paul tells us in Romans 6 we were once slaves to sin, like the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. But when Jesus died on the cross, our sin died with him. And by trusting in him, like the Israelites trusted Moses, we are no longer slaves to sin, but our connection with God has been restored. Through him, we can come into the destiny he designed us to have, which is the equivalent of the promised land of the Israelites. And just as with the Israelites, when we choose God, the forces of this world can try and pull us back. We have our own version of the Red Sea. We're baptized where all these forces are cut off. But just as with the Israelites, on the journey to our destiny in God, our decisions have weight. When we gave our lives to God and got baptized to start an adventure that could take us into God's unique destiny for our lives, but we need to learn from the Israelites how we're to do that. So if you have slide 4, please. So part 2, what happens? So the Israelites have done really well. They're out of Egypt, they've come to the promised land. Now let's look at what happens now. Moses chooses 12 leaders from each of the 12 tribes to go into the promised land and explore it as spies. He tells them to see how many people there are, how strong they are, whether the land is good or bad, and to bring back some of the fruit of the land. They explore for 40 days, and it takes 2 of them to bring back 1 cluster of grapes and a pole. But then they say in Numbers 13:27, "We went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there." And one of the spies is called Caleb, and he says, "Let's go up at once and take possession. We're well able to overcome it." But the others reply, "We're not able to go up against these people. They're stronger than us." And told all the Israelites, so they told everyone, "The land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw giants, the descendants of Enoch, come from the giants. And we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight." And the people of Israel wept all night and said, "If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" And they decided to choose another leader and return to Egypt. But Joshua and Caleb tore their clothes and spoke to the Israelites, saying, "The land we passed through to spy out is a really good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he'll bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord nor fear the people of the land. They are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." But the Israelites were ready to stone them, and then God's glory turned up. And he speaks with Moses and he judges them, and basically says, "Just as you've spoken in my hearing, I'll do to you. You said you'll die in the wilderness, so you will die in the wilderness, except for Caleb and Joshua, who stood, who believed what God would do. But your little ones whom you said would be victims, I will bring in, and they will know the promised land you've despised." And so, as we know, the Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, until that generation had passed away, and their own words came to pass as God had judged. And then Joshua led the Israelites to take in the promised land. Caleb was by his side, and the Bible says that Caleb was as mighty at 80 years of age as he was at 40. And so that's really the story that I'm basing this whole talk on. The Israelites have come out of Egypt, they've come to the border of the promised land, and then they make a mistake, and they miss it, and the next generation has to take it on. And there's 3 points I really want to take out of this story and expand on them a bit. First of all, each of those spies were leaders. had strong callings and strong influence, just like each of you do yourself. Everyone here is a leader by your influence. Every time you speak to someone, you influence them. Every time you do something, you influence them. You're also a leader, just like these 12 spies. Secondly, stepping into your own promised land, the destiny on your life, means you need to learn how to handle intimidation. The Israelites came against the children of Enoch. And know how to respond with courage and faith. And thirdly, our voice is incredibly powerful for creating or blocking the future God has promised us when we speak out what we truly believe. So I'm going to expand on these 3 points. If I could have the next slide, please. Oh yeah, sorry, the next one after that. Okay, you can't see that very well, but it's interesting. I looked up the meanings of the names of each of those spies. And in red are the ones who gave a bad report, in green are the ones that gave a good report. And so there's Shammua, which means renowned, famous. Shaphat, which means judge. Caleb means dog. You know, you'd think if anyone messed up, it would be the one whose name means dog. But he didn't. There's Eagle, which means avenger. There's Joshua, God's my deliverer, who's the only one who lived up to his name, although Caleb was loyal. There's Palti, meaning delivered. Gadiel, God's my good fortune. Gadi, fortunate. Amiel, my kinsman is God. Sethur, meaning hidden or covered, you know, that thing of being protected. Nabi, meaning to withdraw or hide yourself, by implication to hide yourself in God. And Uel, God is my majesty. So imagine each of those names is a word of destiny over their lives. And imagine you've got a name that God's given you, which is your word of destiny. You have the power to step into it or to block it. And it says in Matthew 22:14, Jesus says, many are called, but few are chosen. And really in this story we see how you move from being called to being chosen. And also, we're all leaders, as I said. Our lives change the lives of the people around us. So I just want to ask you, we talk about voice, what does your voice stir up in the people around you? Is your voice leading them into God's destiny or tearing them down, causing harm? When we empower the people around us, there's no space for competition because everyone around us who steps into their destiny pulls us into ours. Those 10 spies pulled everyone out of their destiny. Caleb and Joshua pulled each other in. So the Israelites fought together to take their land. So that's my first point. Many are called, but few are chosen. We have a role to play. And we are all significant. It's how we respond to it. Have the next slide, please. My second point is when we step into our promised land, we have to figure out how do we handle intimidation. They had to confront the sons of Enoch who were giants. As we read on, actually, through the Bible, we see in Joshua 11:22 that these sons of Enoch were driven out of Israel, but there were some left in Gaza, Goth, and Ashdod. And Goliath, who David faced, came from Goth. So he was also a child of Enoch. So David similarly had to overcome his fear of these giants to step into his own journey of God's promise. So just think through, what are your giants? What's ahead of you? James 2:17-18 says, faith by itself, if it doesn't have works, is dead. Someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works. I'll show you my faith by my works. If you really believe who God is, you will have a vision of something you're stepping into, that you're pushing towards, which will have giants. If you've no vision of something you're pushing towards, I would challenge you to stir up your faith, because your faith will lead you into works. And if you do have something you're stirring up, what are the giants that would try and intimidate you. When we face intimidation, it's worth remembering these 3 points. 1, you actually the devil only hits you with intimidation when he feels intimidated by you. So the Israelites were called by God to take that land. So they got hit by fear to stop them doing it. David and the Israelites under Saul were anointed by God to break the power of the Philistines over Israel. So they were hit by intimidation to stop them doing it. If you're feeling intimidated, ask, what is the devil scared that I might do? And then just try, and that actually takes the sting out of that intimidation, because you suddenly see your power. Secondly, Joshua and Caleb had each other. So find a friend who helps keep your vision focused, and don't do it alone. When you get hit by intimidation, you'll often feel isolated. Don't let that happen. Find someone else who builds your faith. And thirdly, learn from how David dealt with his challenges as well. He also had to face intimidation. There's a story in 1 Samuel 30 where David has a group of men, they're outlaws, they've got this camp, and they come back and people have raided their camp and took captive all their women and children and everything they had. And David and his men came back, and the men were so angry they were going to kill David. And then it says, but David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. So when you feel intimidation, learn how to strengthen yourself in God. And then he strengthened himself in God. He asked God, what should I do? And God said, go, you'll take them, you'll recover it all. He goes, he recovers it all, and saves his 2 wives. So get a strategy from God. If you journal, I would say write down what your giants are and ask God, what is your strategy here? What are you saying I should do to take these out? So that was handling intimidation. And next slide, please. And my final point is living in a way that takes us into our destiny, the power of our voice. So I quoted James 3 verses 4 and 5 earlier, and in the New King James Version it says, look also at ships. Although they're so large and are driven by fierce winds, they're turned by a very small rudder, wherever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is small and boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles. So, your life might feel like there's a lot of momentum in a particular direction. There's a lot happening, but your tongue can move it one way or another. The power of your voice. Let's think back to that story of Joshua again, how on the basis of the spy's report, a generation missed their destiny. If we keep reading from there through Numbers, in Numbers 20, we find another story. The Israelites are complaining again, this time about not having any water. They're saying, if only we died in the Lord's presence with our brothers. Why have you brought the congregation of the Lord's people into this wilderness to die, along with all our livestock? Why did you make us leave Egypt and bring us here to this terrible place? This land has no grain, no figs, no grapes, no pomegranates, and no water to drink. It's interesting, the most important things at the end. Moses there listened to them and prayed, and God told Moses to speak to a particular rock, and water would gush forth from it, enough to satisfy everyone and their livestock. But then Moses doesn't speak to the rock, he strikes it instead, and water gushes forth anyway. But because of his disobedience, God told him he couldn't enter the promised land. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, why? Why would striking a rock instead of speaking to it be so important to God? And I think God wanted to make a really important point. He was saying to the Israelites, the words you're speaking is releasing, has already released what you didn't want, and could do it again. If you speak words in the opposite, words of faith, words which come out of your belief of what God will do, it will release all you need. That was the parable God wanted to speak, and to teach them how to use their rudder and move their ship. And so to return to that story of Joshua and the 12 spies who spied out the land, only the 2 that brought back a faith-filled report of what God could do survived till the time Israel entered that land. But at the same time, I've heard a lot of people say, they make their decrees and they decree something, but if you say something and you don't believe it, it's powerless. It has to come out of your belief. Only the words that come out of your beliefs can create or hold back your future. But when our words come out of what we believe, negative or positive, they're really powerful. And Paul applies this principle and talks about salvation in Romans 10:8-9. He says, what's it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That's the word of faith which we preach. If you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus Christ and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. So salvation itself requires both heart and voice, belief and voice. And in 2 Corinthians 4:13, Paul says that this is how faith works. He says, since we have the same spirit of faith, according to what's written in Psalm 116, I believed and therefore I spoke. We also believe and therefore speak. So Paul is saying the spirit of faith, the faith which moves mountains, the faith which changes the future, is something of I believe and therefore I speak. So the faith that guides your future is when you speak out what you really believe. And that can work in either direction. It can be really powerful to bring life to God's plans for your life, or it can stop them happening. And so I felt God really speaking to me about authority a few days ago. And I was chatting to a friend on Facebook who's not walking with God at the moment. There's a lot of stuff going on. And he happened to mention to me that he'd gone to psychic a few years ago, and when she was speaking it felt like this dark cloud around her, and she'd said he would die at 25, and everything else that she'd said so far had happened, so he was quite terrified. And so I told him that the only power that psychics have to accurately foretell the future is through curses, so I decided to use that authority God had been speaking to me about. So I just said, quite simply, well, if your curse that's been put on you is broken now in Jesus' name, there's no more power or authority to work in your life, and I command a blessing over you in every place where cursing has been having any influence. And then it was quiet for a bit, and I thought, oh well, he's gone away, or whatever. And then he said, I just got this vision, and in the vision I was on top of a steep hill. This was someone who wasn't walking with God, and who was not saying he was hearing from God for years, and he just has this vision. I was on top of a steep hill that went down into a valley. The grass was long, the whole place was shining with light, and down at the bottom was a river that was in the middle of big bushy surrounded by big bushy trees. The place was really relaxing. It was like I left the room just after I read your message. So what happened was I believed in my heart I had authority to break that curse. And then I spoke, and it broke. We have authority when we believe and we speak. And at the same time, I also want to just say, a boat is something that's constantly moving. If you're listening and you're thinking, all my words have been moving me in the wrong direction, well, now's the time to move the rudder. There's no condemnation, it's just time to move your rudder. Bring life. And in Psalm 95, it speaks about that day of trial in the wilderness, it calls it. And God says in it, when your fathers tested me, they tried me, though they saw my work. For 40 years I was grieved at that generation, and said, it's a people who go astray in their hearts, and they do not know my ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. When we are moving in the negative place, we come out of rest. When we're moving out of non-faith. But when we're in faith, we come into rest. We start to live in the peace of God. Just wanted to say that. So, that's the theory. How do we put it into practice? Can I have the... Oh, you're ahead of me. First of all, in Ephesians 6 we read about the shield of faith. And I often hear people say, I put on the shield of faith, and they see it as kind of a spiritual object, but I think it's a metaphor. The shield of faith is, what do I believe? When it speaks about fiery darts in that verse, the shield of faith quenches the fiery darts of the wicked one. The word fiery in the Greek speaks of something that inflames something that's already there. So when we are hit by these arrows, it's actually inflaming a belief we already have. So if our shield of faith is our beliefs, then our inner voice and our emotions show us the condition of that shield of faith. If your inner voice is constantly criticizing yourself and pulling you down and saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, well, that's your beliefs. That's where your shield of faith is just now. And Proverbs 25:28 speaks about the extreme of this. It says, whoever has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. And so anything can come in and pull you out. You want to have a strong shield of faith. You want to listen to your inner voice and understand your beliefs and then start to change them. So maybe, if you journal, start journaling your inner voice. Start noticing patterns that happen. What are the tendencies in my inner voice? Where am I disqualifying myself? Where am I pulling myself back? Where am I not believing God? And then if you feel like, for example, with stress or with fear, a question I often ask is, what is the fear that I don't believe God's love will answer? That God in His love will deal with. Like, for example, I hate speaking in public. And so I just put my trust on the verse, he who trusts in Him will not be put to shame. His trust is stayed on Him, will not be put to shame. And so I just thought, okay, well, I'm not going to freeze up, nothing's going to go wrong, because God is going to back me up. So think through, what are the fears and what is God's love's answer? And also, faith is contagious. So if you have faith in someone else, that builds their faith. If you don't have faith in someone else, that tears their faith down. What you see in them creates that in them. So be aware of the power of your voice to influence others. What are you to the people around you? Are you someone who's taking them into what you ask for them? And our words can bless or curse. In James 3:8-10, he speaks about a voice. With our voices we bless God and curse those who are made in His image. Speaking about what we should be doing. So if we're gossiping or criticizing people behind their backs, it's like we're cursing them. So don't do that. Because if something's pulling them back from being fully into what God has for them, then they won't be able to pull you into what God has for you as well. It's together we come into the promised land. And then, my final step, go to the next slide please. It's a book called Good to Great, written by a guy called Jim Collins. And he tells the story of how he interviewed the highest ranking survivor of the Vietnamese prisoner of war camps. And he was thinking, what is it that made you tick? How did you get through this? And so he asked him, how on earth did he deal with it when he was actually there and did not know the end of the story? I never lost faith in the end of the story, he said when I asked him. I never doubted, not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turned the experience into the defining event of my life, which in retrospect I would not trade. I didn't say anything for many minutes, and we continued the slow walk towards the faculty club, Stockdale limping and arc swinging a stiff leg that had never fully recovered from repeated torture. Finally, after about 100 metres of silence, I asked, "Who didn't make it out?" "Oh, that's easy," he said. "The optimists." "The optimists? I don't understand," I said, now completely confused given what he'd said 100 metres earlier. "The optimists? Oh, they were the ones who said, we're going to go out by Christmas, and Christmas would come, and Christmas would go. Then they'd say, we're going to go out by Easter, and Easter would come, and Easter would go, and then Thanksgiving, and then it would be Christmas again, and they died of a broken heart." Another long pause and more walking. Then he turned to me and said, "This is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be." And often we confuse faith with denial. So also practice the habit of not being in denial. If you journal the things which you don't want to admit are happening. The things you want to say aren't there. Journal them, treat them as giants, and ask God, well, what is your strategy here? And now, just to conclude, if I could have the last slide, please. Many are called, but few are chosen. So learn to listen to your inner voice and emotions. See what's happening, see what your beliefs are. What are the things that set off a storm of emotion in you? What are the fears that were set off by that thing that happened there that made you all emotional? What's God's answer to that? Build up that shield of faith that is the foundation for the voice. I spoke, therefore. I believe, therefore I spoke. That's the foundation for that voice that takes you into God's future for your life. And also just be really intentional. Know the authority of the words you speak. Think, what am I saying here? What am I saying there? What am I saying in this context? Like, I was careful not to say, ignore this, I'm really rubbish at speaking in public. Just because I was thinking, that's not a belief I want to encourage. And I was thinking then, okay, well, what would be a healthy belief there? So avoid tearing yourself or others down with your words, because your words have power to release life or death. Overcome intimidation well by having friends who keep you strong. Strengthening yourself in God and remembering that the enemy is more scared of you than you are of the challenges before you. And remember that faith is not denial or optimism. It looks the facts in the face, but then presses into God for his answer to this, like when David strengthened himself in the Lord. And so, what I've been speaking will probably take some time to think about, some time to process. I've tried to have the main themes come through again and again so it's easy to remember. And there might be some journey of the Israelites from Egypt out of slavery through the Red Sea, which speaks of our baptism, towards the promised land. And maybe you're feeling like you're still in Egypt. You're feeling these chains of things that you are doing and you wish you didn't. You're feeling an emptiness in yourself that you just know needs to be filled somehow, but you don't know how to fill it. And if that's you, I just want to encourage you, come up for prayer at the end and just tell someone that that's you. Because Jesus is Saviour, and he wants to take you out of slavery to sin as well and set you free.
I'm going to keep your hair growing, that's alright. it finishes and we sort of finish with a worship song. Graham, I feel like you've served us a ginormous roast dinner, and it is so full of goodness. Everything that has gone up on that screen and the words that have come out of Graham's mouth, there's just so much in there. And I know it's taken you time to prepare that and to spend time with God. And so I want to honour you for what you've put into that. And what I'd like to ask as well is if you can provide us with the slides, because I think we all need to take those away and really spend time. We'll hopefully have the recording keep digging into this. I think there's some really, really important things in what Graham shared this morning, and maybe we'll return to it because I think there's so much in that. So Richard, if you want to come up with other people, we're just going to quickly pray for Graham, and then we're going to close with a worship song. And I just echo what Graham says as well. If you want some prayer, then please come and let us pray for you this morning. So Father God, we honour Graham this morning. We honour the words, his voice that he has used to bring you glory and to teach us this morning, to feed us from your word, to build us up, to encourage us. And so Lord, we thank you for that. We thank you for that gift of teaching, of discovering, and of delving into your word that you've put in Graham, and for the way that it blesses us. Lord, we ask that the time he spent in preparation, that you would restore that time to him with good rest in the next few days. And Lord, would we learn as a community and as a family here how to use our voice well. I loved the line that Graham said, that we enter the promised land together. Lord, would we be a community that use our voice to encourage each other into that promised land, into the things, the inheritance and the abundance that you have for us.
I had a picture of you as a really deep well voice behind you, and I felt to come and stand behind you actually to say that God has your back and that he has all of our backs, and that there is unity and breakthrough coming from your testimony, and that you are a man of integrity, and that you just encourage us to be those wells of living water, that just every part of us, you could cut you through the middle and you would be the same. So you are just a man after God's heart, and you just spur us on and encourage us to be that as well. Thank you. We are thankful for you.